It was supposed to be a quiet night. Emily and Daniel had just brought home their first baby, a little girl named Sophie. Like any new parents, they were nervous about every sound, every cry, every restless shuffle from the crib. To ease their anxiety, they bought one of the latest baby monitors, a sleek device with crystal-clear audio, night vision, and even motion detection. The box promised peace of mind for parents. Emily clutched onto that promise like it was a lifeline. That night, Sophie was sleeping peacefully in her nursery upstairs. Emily and Daniel sat in the living room, exhausted but grateful for a moment to themselves. The monitor sat on the coffee table, its soft green light glowing. At first, everything was normal. The faint sound of Sophie breathing, the occasional rustle as she turned in her sleep. Then, at 12:43 a.m., the monitor hissed with static. Emily frowned and picked it up. "Did you hear that?" Daniel nodded. "It's probably interference." But before either of them could switch it off, the static sharpened into something else. A sound. A scream. It wasn't Sophie. It wasn't even human. It was a guttural, piercing wail that made Emily drop the monitor onto the carpet. The scream was so loud, so distorted, it rattled through the walls of the house. Daniel leapt to his feet and ran upstairs. Emily followed, heart pounding. When they burst into the nursery, Sophie was still asleep, calm, unmoved by the chaos. The baby monitor camera blinked in the corner, pointed directly at the crib. Nothing seemed wrong. Daniel picked up Sophie to make sure she was okay. She stirred but didn't cry. Emily inspected the camera. The lens was ice cold. "Maybe it picked up something from another house," Daniel offered weakly. But they lived in a quiet, suburban neighborhood. The nearest house was over 100 feet away. That night, neither of them slept. The next day, Emily called the company that manufactured the monitor. The customer service rep assured her there was no possible way for another signal to interfere with the device. "It's a secure channel," the rep said firmly. "Encrypted. Nothing else can connect." Emily hung up uneasy. By the third night, she tried convincing herself it was a glitch. But at exactly 12:43 a.m., the static returned. This time, the scream came through again, louder, sharper, almost anguished. Daniel rushed to unplug the monitor, but the moment he touched it, the scream stopped, and on the tiny screen, for the briefest second, they both swore they saw something. Not their baby, not Sophie, but a face, pale, wide-eyed, pressed up against the inside of the camera, staring directly at them. Then it vanished. Emily wanted to throw the monitor away. Daniel insisted they needed it. They couldn't risk not hearing Sophie if she needed them in the night. But the following evening, Emily found herself unable to relax. Every creak in the house set her on edge. When the clock neared midnight, she felt sick with dread. At 12:43 a.m., the monitor screamed again. This time, Sophie woke and started crying, as if sensing something in a room with her. Emily ran upstairs and froze in the doorway. The nursery was freezing, her breath visible in the air. The monitor's camera pointed toward the crib, but Sophie wasn't alone. For just a heartbeat, Emily saw a shadow crouched beside the crib. Long, spindly arms stretched over the railing, its head bent towards Sophie. When the hallway light spilled in, the figure melted into nothing. Emily scooped Sophie up and sobbed. Daniel ripped the monitor from the wall and hurled it into the trash. But even with the device gone, the nights didn't get easier. 2 days later, Sophie wouldn't stop crying. No matter what Emily tried, feeding, rocking, singing, nothing worked. And then, faintly, beneath Sophie's wails, Emily heard it. The scream. It wasn't coming from a monitor this time. It was coming from the baby herself. Emily froze. The cry twisted, warped, becoming a sound no baby should ever make. It was deeper, older, filled with a rage that didn't belong to her daughter. Sophie's tiny mouth opened wider than seemed possible, the scream tearing through the house. Daniel grabbed Sophie and shook his head in horror. It's not her. It's coming through her. And then, just as suddenly as it started, Sophie went limp, fast asleep in Daniel's arms. The couple stared at each other, shaken to their core. That night, unable to bear the silence, Emily checked the trash where Daniel had thrown the monitor. The device wasn't there. Neither of them had touched it. On the sixth night, at 12:43 a.m. sharp, Emily and Daniel awoke to the sound of the scream blasting through their phones. Both their screens glowed with a live feed. The monitor had reconnected itself. The video showed Sophie's nursery. Only this time, Sophie wasn't in her crib. Instead, the crib was filled with writhing shadows. Dozens of pale hands gripped the bars from the inside, pushing against them, clawing to escape. And then, a single whisper cut through the static. "She's ours now." The feed went black. Daniel and Emily rushed into the nursery. Sophie was gone. The crib was empty. All that remained was the baby monitor, lying in the crib, its green light glowing faintly. And then it screamed. If you're watching this right now, ask yourself, what would you have done? Would you trust the monitor or throw it away? Tell us in the comments, if you dare.